Hi, everyone. I am back with another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast, and I have with me today Stephanie Smith, who is a functional health coach and pharmacist. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marina. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to get to chat with you. I know we met last year through Facebook, just networking and getting to know each other and carving our paths through functional medicine and blending pharmacy and integrative medicine together. So I'm super excited to hear about your journey, how it all started for you. So let's start there. Where did you grow up and how did you become a pharmacist?
Yes, good question. I grew up in New Jersey, and my childhood, I was really, I loved to dance. I was a dancer. I did ballet, tap, jazz, all of the things, and I just loved to move my body. It was just something that still is like a part of who I am today. But I think I realized, I was in high school that, I didn't really see a career in dancing. And so I was kind of exploring, my other passions, I really loved science and math, and my mom is a nurse. So I kind of led me down the healthcare career path, but I didn't really see myself being a nurse. I didn't really want to be too hands-on, but I really wanted to help people through medicine. And I got my first job when I was 16 at an Echter's pharmacy. So I worked in a retail pharmacy, and I was like, yep, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And yeah, I applied to pharmacy school. And yeah, 6 years later, I was a doctor of pharmacy.
Yeah, I can really relate to a lot of that since I also danced for a really long time and through pharmacy school, in fact.
Yeah.
And it's something I continue to find important, the mind-body connection and somatic embodiment principles. That's something that I love to incorporate personally and professionally. So I agree, though, a lot of us make our choices based on what makes sense and what has monetization potential. So careers like in dance or in the arts or in the humanities aren't considered as lucrative, in most circles. So, so I'd love to know how pharmacy school went for you and what did you decide to do after graduating?
Yeah. So pharmacy school, it was good. It was challenging for me. But I really enjoyed it. I loved, especially when we got into the pathophysiology and like what was going on with the body and just the deep understanding of that. And I loved clinical rotations. I just really loved the application of pharmacy and really getting to work with patients and talk to people. And so yeah, so it was good. I also stopped dancing when I went to college, so that was like a big, oh my gosh, like where do I get my movement and my exercise, and just not eating as healthy because I was living in a dorm. So I had to find new ways to do that, and to take care of my body. So that was like my first time having to really figure it out, where I needed to take care of myself, and that happened many times throughout my life, and that was just probably the first time. So I started working out at a gym and started getting into yoga, and just, yeah, like you said, just finding ways to move my body. I went to pharmacy school in Philadelphia, so we walked a lot, and yeah, so it's kind of that's kind of, pharmacy school was good. And then I fell in love with New York City. I guess Philly was a taste of the city, and then I fell in love with New York City. So I made it my mission to get up there. So I got my first job. I moved the day after graduating from pharmacy school. I drove a U-Haul with all my stuff. I got a tiny apartment in the West Village, and I was like, I made it. I had a job, I had my own apartment, and here I was with my degree. I hadn't even gotten licensed yet, and I just was like, I'm ready to start. So that was really empowering, I think, for to really be on my own. And my first job was I actually worked for a medical education company, and we were consultants, and our main client was Pfizer. And at the time, so this was in 2002, Viagra was their main product. So I was helping create medical education content for Pfizer for Viagra. So did that for about a year, and I really missed that patient interaction. So in the meantime, I had gotten my New York State license and got my first clinical pharmacist job at Mount Sinai Medical Center, and I was working on the oncology and hematology unit. We had a satellite, so it was part dispensing, part working with patients, and I just loved it. Decided I was going to I wanted to do residency. I wanted to specialize in oncology. Ended up doing a residency at Temple University in Philadelphia and doing a pharmacy practice instead. And yeah, and kind of led me down the critical care path, which I can tell you more about that job. So that's kind of how I got started, and it was exciting. It was a fun time to just be exploring and learning new things professionally and personally as well.
Yeah, sounds like you tapped into a variety of different settings there, which is wonderful. And many pharmacists I know feel stuck or stagnant if they stay in one place for too long, and then they feel like there's no hope in switching their trajectory. So it's really interesting that you got a chance to participate and work in all these different places. And I myself also interned at Pfizer at the 42nd Street location.
Yeah.
And I love the West Village, and that's actually where my herb school was. So
Oh, wow.
I feel like we were in the same places at different times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The West Village is so quaint, and I loved living there. It was great. And yeah, and that's what I love about about the career of pharmacy, was that there's so many different paths that you can take. And a lot of people would ask me, especially when I was younger, how did you know at such a young age that you wanted to be a pharmacist? And like I mentioned before, it kind of found me, but I also feel that I thought I was going to be a retail pharmacist, like the first job and experience that I had, and actually never in the past 20 years have done that as a pharmacist, but I've done many, many other things. And so that's, I think, one really cool thing about being a pharmacist is that there's just so many different opportunities as well. And so, yeah, and so then after I did my residency, I actually fell in love with critical care, and I had a lot of great mentors there that just taught me just amazing stuff. And being at an academic university, and just being able to see so much really acute critical care and infectious disease, I really just was like, this is it. And I was able to stay on as a critical care specialist in critical care. So my position was in the surgical ICU. It was a surgical trauma ICU at the time. It was 20 beds, and I was the specialist for that unit. So I was in charge of, overseeing all the patients there, and I got to be a part of a multidisciplinary team. I got to take on residents, residents and students. I got to do a lot of education to pharmacists, nurses, physicians, residents. I got to serve on committees and help make guidelines for the ICU and the hospital. I got to be a part of the code team. So we were running to codes and rapid responses all day long. And it was just, and I got to be, we were affiliated with the School of Pharmacy at Temple. So I got to also be a part of that and be adjunct faculty as well. So for about 10 years, I did that. And that was my dream job. That was it. Like I was doing it all. Like, as a clinical pharmacist, I could not have asked for more better experience, and I absolutely loved it. But at the same time, that was my professionally what was going on. But personally, when I was leaving New York and coming back to Philly to do my residency, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and I loved living in New York City, but that was pretty stressful and hard on my body. I wasn't sleeping well, I ended up at an apartment on Park Avenue, so that was really noisy and loud and lights, and I was doing shift work, so working till 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then being back to work at 6 or 7 in the morning, so sleep wasn't good, health, nutrition wasn't good, so I think this led to my first diagnosis. So when I got to Philly and after kind of finishing up residency, I just really started changing some of that, and I just really found the power of nutrition and lifestyle changes on our health. So I was able to heal my Crohn's disease through eating healthier, sleeping a little better, lowering my stress. And that was really amazing too, because I just always was kind of the mindset of like, we need to take medications to heal and to get better. And it was just really kind of very eye-opening for me as well. So then I started getting more into eating healthy, and I always kind of ate vegetables, but I always ate the same like few ones. But my husband and I started dating, and my husband now, and one of like the big things I say changed my life or changed the way I was eating is that I decided to join a CSA. And so this is when you get a farm share from local farms once a week. So you get this big box of vegetables, and it changes every week, and you don't really know what you're getting, and it's just, you don't even know how to, I had to look up what is this vegetable and how do you cook it, and so many things. So I really loved it though. Everything tasted so much better. I felt like what we were starting to cook together was tasting as good as the dishes I was eating at Philadelphia restaurants, like it was, because it was in season and so fresh. And we started really just, cooking all types of, I used to meal plan from like magazines like Food and Wine and Bon Appetit, like this is before kids. So, and it really just, I felt like I just never felt as good as I had so far in my life as I did then. And it just, I still to this day belong to a CSA, and even got the chance for a few years to be like a host site member. So where people would come pick up their CSA at our house. I just was so passionate about eating vegetables and making them taste good though, and having fun with them and learning new ways to prepare and cook them.
Wow. Well, can I just say how amazing this transformation must have been, that you are now advertising and advocating for healthy eating after the diagnosis of Crohn's disease, which can probably scare people off from any kind of food. And, it's a scary diagnosis to have. So could you tell us a little bit more about what that was like for you, how you made the transition into healthy eating, how you made that connection? Did you have any guidance? And how did you cure essentially yourself, heal through food?
Yeah. I think I was just noticed that I would feel better when I ate a meal that I cooked myself versus, maybe getting some fast food or takeout from a local place. And so I kind of just became curious about that. And then I didn't really have much guidance. I think I started to read some books, like some Michael Pollan books, and, just about where food comes from. And, I just started to explore that and just found it so fascinating. And I was reading a book, Animal Vegetable Miracle, and that's where I got the idea to join a CSA. And I think that was, I read about, I didn't even know what it was, and I just researched and found one. But before that, I started going to farmers markets and just kind of just seeing all this fresh food. And I love to eat, and I love food, and I love really good food. And I lived in New York City, and we were living in Philly, so I knew what it tasted like. And I was starting to learn how to create this on my own, and it was really fun especially when you have like friends and like a partner to do it with. And I think that's kind of it. And I just slowly was starting to just feel better one day at a time. And I just realized one day, I said, talked to my doctor, and I said, I think I want to try going off my meds for my Crohn's disease and just see what happens. And that was it. I stopped taking them, and I was very lucky that that's all I needed to do, and go from there, and exercise as well. And I was trying to just take better care of moving my body again, and trying to manage my stress. I wasn't as good with managing stress back then. So the dream job at Temple was amazing, but as you can imagine, it was very stressful. You know, being in the ICU where you're literally saving lives is so rewarding, but it can be really stressful because you're just running from the next emergency to the next. And I was, you know, just always felt like I needed to be there for my patients and for the other members of my team. And so I just never wanted to let anyone down. I think I was, you know, I'm a recovering perfectionist and type A personality, and like I can do it myself, and I can do it, you know, I can do it all. And so you know, I really poured myself into that role. And so it definitely mentally and physically was exhausting. And so that's when I started to, even though I was eating healthier and moving, I probably wasn't balancing the stress of the job as well, and never kind of left that at home or left that at work, and I brought it home with me. And so after my husband and I got married and we decided to start a family, I then I had trouble. I had a couple of miscarriages, and that led to a Hashimoto's diagnosis. So, which I still didn't even know at the time what that was. I just knew I had a low thyroid and I needed to take Synthroid. And all I really wanted to do was to be able to get pregnant and start my family. So luckily that worked, and I was able to have my first daughter, Sophia, who's now 10. And I went back to work full time when she was 3 months old. I wasn't sleeping at all through the night. You know, no one told me like how hard it would be. No one told me like, and the other part of my job was that I also had a family there. That was also my friends, my family. I worked with a great group of pharmacists and like I said, doctors. It was the whole team, like everyone I knew. It was a big hospital, but it was, that was my family. So I was like, I'm going back there. There's no other way. And so I did for a year, and that was probably the hardest year of my life. I was trying to be a mom, which I for the first time, and I was working just constantly. Now I'm not taking breaks because I just wanted to get back, you know, pick up my daughter at daycare. You know, I have memories of pumping, you know, in my office. I didn't want to take a break. I would do it all, eat, pump, and work up my patients while I was, you know, I just didn't stop. And so that was really hard. And I started to lose that, just that, like, I guess, passion, you know, for what I was doing. And, you know, it just wasn't as rewarding because the balance wasn't there anymore. And so I had to really just decide, like, what was I going to do? And I have this one memory of just coming home one day after like working, you know, a long day, and bringing my daughter home from daycare. And I'm washing the bottles again, which is just like what I would do every day, wash all her bottles, you know, to send them to daycare the next day. And just being so exhausted, and I think I was eating like a bowl of cereal for dinner, which was like such a big change from where I, you know, had been. And I just knew that like, I had to make a change, and I had to make that difficult decision. And that was really hard.
Yeah, for sharing that. Sounds like the ups and downs and navigating these challenges of life and work and family. And it is a dance to balance all of that. And, you know, I have to commend you also for realizing that there needs to be a change in your environment, right? Because many people, when they're diagnosed with something or having a health challenge, the automatic response is, okay, here's the diagnosis, here's the medication. There's also a lot of fear, you know, and confusion, and you have to kind of wrestle with this idea that maybe this diagnosis is quote unquote permanent or chronic, and a lot can come up there. But it sounds like you were able to discern, both when you were living in New York City, that the sleep and the stress and all of these job expectations have to change, which is what influenced you to move back to Philadelphia. And then now with this new role of becoming a mother, the same thing was happening, where the type A personality, which I think a lot of pharmacists share, this perfectionism, which is what makes us good pharmacists, and which is what probably helps people like us make those decisions early on to go to pharmacy school and stick it out and have this like safe, quote unquote, lucrative, and exciting profession under our belt. However, it's not sustainable, right? If you have those night shifts, if you have those sleep disruptions, if you have a family to take care of, I mean, the hours that we're expected to work, with the amount of pressure and responsibility to take care of other patients who are suffering or in pain or sick, it's a lot. So I don't think some of these settings are set up in a sustainable way, where there's not enough help, even in the retail setting, right? There's not enough usually help. There's too much work responsibilities, and now with vaccinations and documentation and all of these things that fall on us to do just single-handedly after, a 12-hour shift or shift work where we're working night shifts or 7 days on, 7 days off, like nurses. So it's so difficult to navigate, which is why I think so many people in the healthcare field in general are suffering from burnout. So it's not very intuitive in today's society to say, hey, let's assess like this globally and figure out what are these factors that are leading to such a mass exodus from our professions and such a massive dissatisfaction or even rates of suicide in the healthcare professions. So, I really have to commend you for realizing that. And it sounds like, you didn't have much guidance. Like, for example, when I was diagnosed with things, I would go to all these different healers and professionals. And now it's much easier. I feel like there's so many health coaches, functional medicine providers you can seek out. And back then, all you had were some books. And, the fact that you found a CSA is really cool, because I also did one when I started my health coaching journey and started getting educated on this stuff. But you're right, it's not really public knowledge, and that's a shame.
It really is. And and our society normalizes being stressed, like, and being busy and all of those things. Like it's just a normal part of life, but it doesn't make it healthy or what the right thing is for you. And, we all have our seasons in life, and it is really about recognizing, okay, like maybe a change is needed, and it takes a lot of courage, and it feels really uncomfortable to make changes. And so, but sometimes you have to, you kind of have to just decide for yourself. Everyone is different, but you could always go back to a job, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? I could have, left that job. Maybe I could have found that somewhere else again, gone back. It's not, nothing is so permanent in life, and it's good to try things. And so I did. So I left that job. It was, like I said, it was the toughest, hardest, time in my life up until that point. I was able to get a part-time job. So then I moved to University of Pennsylvania, and so I was lucky. They valued my skills, and took me on and let me work per diem, that part-time, while I still had my first daughter. And my stress levels went way down after I left my critical care position, but I lost my identity. So I went from, like, my career was my identity for so many years, and now I'm still a new mom, and I'm starting out in a bigger university. And now, instead of being like the go-to person for, if you had, everyone was like, go to Stephanie, ask her if you need help with something. I had all these roles and wore all these hats to just kind of filling in for people. And not even really people knowing my name or who I was. And it was really hard. That was really hard. So I started to feel, I guess, more disconnected, but at the same time, as I'm learning more about nutrition and exercise and realizing the role, I think medicine and pharmacy and everything for acute care is amazing. It's life-saving. We're giving medications for these awful infections, and we're doing life-saving interventions and surgeries. But and I saw that, but what I was starting to also realize is that that people weren't really getting better chronically. So they would come into the hospital, we'd make them all better and send them out, and then they would be back a couple weeks or a month later, and still in the same 20 med list, with a new problem or a new issue, and we would give another med to fix that and send them out the door. And so I always was on the acute care side, but I was starting to realize, like, I think that was my disconnect, was that we're not really helping people chronically with these symptoms and diseases, and that are we talking to them about nutrition and exercise and stress reduction and all these things that are essentially free and and don't have side effects except good ones. And I really starting to feel that pull, but just feeling lost too, like not knowing, like, well, what do I do next? I still had this, like, holding on to this identity as a pharmacist for so many years. But I think what I started to find was that when I was going to work for my part-time job, I was finding joy in talking to people and to pharmacists. And as a lot of pharmacists are females and moms, and so now I'm connecting with, I wasn't so focused on my career and what I was doing. I was still doing good patient care, but I was also now like, okay, now let's talk about, like, what we're going to cook for dinner and swapping healthy recipes, or what we're doing for our exercise routines, or what we're feeding our kids, and what we're doing activities with them. And so I really just started to find joy and passion again, and just talking to other women, and especially moms, about taking care of ourselves and how we were trying to do it and balance it all. And so I think a lot of, and then people started coming to me and asking me questions, or like, oh, what are you cooking, or that kind of thing. And I really was, I loved that. And so I think that was like my first clue, even though it took many years to bring me to where I am now. But if I didn't have that experience, if I had stayed in that stressful job, I may not have ever gotten to that point. And so I may have not realized what was ahead, and what I could look forward to. So and I tried a lot of different, I worked part-time. I tried a few other, I took a part-time job, like a temp position. I wrote for 𝐂𝐚𝐥𝐸𝐴 for a little bit. And then I did get a part-time job working still at University of Penn. And I was part of a fecal microbiota transplant research study for C. diff. And so that was fascinating to me, and it was really interesting. And I started to learn the power of the microbiome, and as I was just learning all about that and all its connection to diseases and symptoms, and I was just fascinated, and it was just like, it was still starting to open my eyes. And that's when but it still wasn't quite that connect. I knew there was more, and I was trying to figure out what was next. And I ended up kind of doing two things. I had been reading books for years and articles and just whatever information I could take in, but I wanted to do something more formal and structured. And just through having kind of like an open mind and talking to other pharmacists and other people, and really just keep every day I would kind of start the day like, what am I going to do? And by nighttime I would just be like, oh, I'd be exhausted and be like, oh, nothing. I guess there's just nothing, But then the next day I'd be like, oh, I'm going to figure it out today. And I just kept persevering, and I found functional medicine, and that was just through talking to people that were going through it or had gone through it. And I was like, I think this is it. I think this is what I've been looking for. And so I started a functional medicine program, which I'm about a little more than halfway through. But I also felt like it had been almost 20 years since I'd been to pharmacy school. And my way of talking to patients was talking to them and not really, just kind of giving them information. And so I wanted to really refresh and update my, how to talk to people and how to motivate them. So I also decided to do a certified health coach program, and that was amazing and like very eye-opening as well. And it really changed how I even talk to my kids, and it's just to everyone, my friends who come to me for advice. It just really was just a great way to learn how to really get people to figure out their own motivation and not just tell them like, this is what you got to do and go do it. But tapping into their why do they want to make the changes, and help them figure out how to do it. And so that's really what I love to do as well.
Yeah, so like partnering with the client or patient and working with them as a team versus being this doctor expert who's giving them, the prescription for health, and it has to be followed like a very paternal, father figure. So yeah, I agree. That is really eye-opening, motivational interviewing and other kinds of things, and really digging into that intention and the motivation, because the most difficult thing that I've found about anyone's healing journey is what you just described, like that every day waking up and having that drive and that desire, and having that be what leads you, having your passion for life and for healing be stronger every single day, and choosing to put power and strength into that bucket, versus it's so easy to like sometimes just lose hope and give up and not do it, and tell yourself, oh, I'm exhausted, because it's true, right? But it's building those habits for yourself and choosing those things that actually fill your bucket and not deplete it, that will make a difference over time. And I think that's really the most difficult thing. And like you said, change is hard. People are resistant because we're just wired that way. So it's just part of our survival brain, and we're wired to resist change or to prioritize fear, but it really sounds like you allowed love, your passion for your career, sort of like a love affair, really, with pharmacy, to be your guide and motivate yourself through what drives you. And when you saw that that was shifting, you made those necessary changes. You switched your location, you switched your position, you moved into the functional medicine space when you were called for that, you moved into the coaching space. So that's really wonderful that you had such a strong drive within yourself that you were able to follow.
Yeah, thank you. And with working with patients and clients, just realizing that they are the true change makers, and and just figuring, recognizing that, and that they are the experts on their life and their health and how they're going to do it, and it's just not one prescribed way. And and maybe what we may think is the most important may not be the most important to them. And there's so many factors that affect that, like their family, their friends, their surroundings, their belief systems. And it's just really interesting. And I love that, because you really get to, it's almost like solving, putting a puzzle together and just helping them kind of figure it all out. And that's really is also, I find, so rewarding about coaching, is that you get to watch this transformation, that you're kind of just partnering along on this journey with them. And so it's really it's just amazing, and you're like just blown away by like what people can accomplish in even just a short amount of time. And they did it really on their own, and you're just there to facilitate it. And so I just I just find that so just rewarding, and I haven't felt that since the reward that I felt in that first job as a clinical pharmacist. It took a while, but and like you said, I persevering, but it was a lot, and it took a lot of time of just a lot of hemming and hawing, and just maybe I'll do this, and still trying to figure out how am I going to do it down a pharmacist path, and then where am I going to do it as more as a health coach, but really realizing it didn't really matter because I was just helping them. Going back to my mission of helping people, from when I was 16 years old and deciding to go to pharmacy school, I just wanted to help people through their health. And it didn't matter, honestly, it doesn't matter how I do it. And that's very, I don't know, it's just very freeing. But also I think, what gave me a lot of courage is just a lot of other things that were kind of going on personally as well. And so after, my husband and I had moved to the suburbs, and we had our, our dream home, and he had his dream job, and I was, have now a mom of two, and figuring out, I spent a lot of years figuring out how to bring movement and nutrition, but now as a mom. And so my meal planning looked totally different. And, I was embracing my slow cooker and setting that up at night, because I would leave for work so early in the morning. So my meal would be cooking overnight for the next day. But just sticking to meal planning and batching, and we started freezing meals, and just kind of trying different things, but just realizing it just felt good. And I was walking the kids in the stroller, and just incorporating them into my movement, and or would I go to a gym with the daycare? I was just figuring this all out, and it didn't look anything like it had before kids. It was fun, and figuring that all out. And so, like I said, we had our our dream life, but we realized, especially through the pandemic, that it actually wasn't quite our dream life. We were so lucky, but my husband and I, especially me, I had this dream of moving to Vermont. And so we're living in a suburb of New Jersey outside Philadelphia, and he, having land to have, to do whatever we wanted with. And we always kind of thought, well, I guess when the kids go to college, we'll do something like that. But I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait till they were all grown up. I wanted to experience it with them, but I just never thought how are we going to live it in such a rural place? What are we going to do for work and all these things? It just, it would never happen. And it actually did. And so actually a year ago, this past week, we moved from our 1/8, we were on 1/8 of an acre in a suburb in New Jersey, and now we're on a 120-acre property in northern Vermont. And so, that's a whole nother story how it happened. But my husband, he found a job, and it was a good fit for him, because he was ready to make the change, a change too, where he needed to. And we were just so lucky that we found a great place, and we have had the best year of our lives. And our kids I have one that's almost 8 and 10, so it's just been so much fun. So now I'm learning, not only did we make this big transition, this big move as a family, we're learning. I didn't grow up skiing, and now we live 20 minutes from a ski mountain. So I remember it was when we were coming to look, my husband came up for his interview when we were exploring the area, and we went to the ski mountain, and I had just skied a handful of times before that. And there was our ski mountain has a lower mountain with the easy trails, and then there's this upper mountain, and that's where high school kids train to be professional skiers. Some go on to be the Olympics. And I remember just looking up to this upper mountain being there is no way I will ever be up there skiing those trails. That will just never happen. I'm not a skier. I'm not good at this. I didn't grow up doing it. And, so when we moved here, and then this past winter, we got all the gear, we got the skis, and we were up skiing. And by February of this year, I was up there on the upper mountain doing those trails. And that was just so like it's just so many things. And so like learning new things is really hard. You need to really embrace that you're going to suck at it. And you know, that there's 4 and 5 year olds that are skiing next to you that are better than you. And you know that worrying what other people think. And they're like, oh, are they looking at me? They must think I'm so terrible, and so many things. But I kind of embraced, and this is just with anyone trying to make change, it's like, well, what do I want to be? Do I want to be a healthy person? Well, what does a healthy person do? Or do I want to eat healthy? Well, what does that entail? So I wanted to be a skier, and so I was like, well, what does a skier do? And besides, you look the part, you dress, getting all the gear and the layers. And I skied every chance I could. And so that's how I got better. I'm not great. I'm still working on it, but I'm really looking forward to next year. And, and embrace, and now I'm starting to embrace health, so where I went from like the type A, I could do it all. I can do everything. I'll do it, my way, and it'll be great, to like, I need help. And so really a lot of it was just watching. I was lucky to have a lot of friends that are good skiers. So just watching them and modeling my, my movement and my body after them, or just, having them like encourage me. Taking lessons helps. I was chaperoning my kids. They were going with the school to, to learn to ski. So up here, like you spend half a day skiing. And so I was a chaperone, and I'm listening, taking notes to the instructor with the elementary school kids, learning how to ski. So just really that beginner's mind and just an open mind about it. And so I think it was just kind of like, okay, like learning new things, it's possible. And then when you build that confidence, you feel like you can do anything. And so I think that's just everything that happened, and throughout my career, and this big move, and then like starting to learn new things. You're also learning to rock climb, and I realized that was really scary. And now we're learning to mountain bike, and I'm back to like, I am just terrible at it, but I am having fun, and I'm getting out there every week. But I think it was just all of that also just really just gave me that motivation that I needed, or that inspiration to start my own business, and just to realize like, this is it, this is what I want to do. Because that was just honestly the scariest thing that I ever could imagine. And everything seems so overwhelming. So I can imagine with people who are trying to make health changes as well, it's overwhelming, and it's scary, and it requires showing up every day and making, really small changes, or, just doing small things like 1% better each day and building on that. And so, so I did it. Yeah. So I launched my own health coaching business, and my only regret is that I didn't start it sooner, because I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great regret to have. And actually, I'm also embracing this new way that I'm infusing into my coaching and in my life, is a system called positive intelligence. And the major concept is that anything, even an adversity, can be changed into a gift and an opportunity. So what you're describing is really just allowing the space to be okay with not being okay, and knowing that everything is temporary, and allowing yourself and anybody you interact with, including your clients and patients, that it's okay for them to have their own experience, right? And giving them that space and the sovereignty to make their healthcare choices, and you being the guide that's helping them make an informed decision and navigating their priorities and their challenges that as they see them, and not as we see them, and not imposing or assuming things from our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just when you're starting to try to do something new, like you actually feel like it's like a kid again, that feeling of like, and we don't get that very often as adults. We have so many responsibilities and so much stress and things to worry about, and we're, you know, running here and there. Just the opportunity to feel childlike again is really energizing, and I'm really lucky, you know, I'm getting to do it, you know, with my children, although they're blowing past me real fast, but that's okay, because that's really exciting, you know, to watch them grow as well. But yeah, it's just really humbling, but like it just gives you that lift of that boost of confidence that like I can do this, and that's also the realization, like I always thought, like we have one dream, right? Like it's just like you have your dream and you're lucky if you get to achieve it, and that actually we have many many dreams, so keep dreaming because your dreams will change, and you know, and they are attainable. You know, you just think about what small step you can work towards each day to get to that. And so one of my favorite things with creating change is like I don't really like, you know, especially with like health habits and stuff, you know, we tend to say like, you know, I'm going to be healthy this week, or starting on Monday, I'm going to start eating better. And they're just kind of like these vague goals. And, you know, although your why and your intention is very important, it doesn't actually help make that getting it into movement, into action. And so, and you lose your motivation and your willpower very quickly, you know, like by midweek, you might be like, oh, I'm just exhausted. I can't do this. And it's so overwhelming. And so, you know, for me personally, with like my professional and starting the business, like I said, I started to embrace help. So I've gotten help, and I, you know, collaborating with people has been just actually really fun, and not doing it on my own because that's less scary. But also just figuring out how to make like tiny habit goals. So like being very specific, and you know, this week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and what time you're going to do it, and what you're going to do, and how much, and all those things. And then you build on that. And so we have so many habits that are just, we don't even realize, like we get up, brush our teeth, you know, we make a cup of coffee, all these automatic things. So now you can just build on those automatic things. So you can say, okay, after I brush my teeth, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes, 2 minutes. I started out meditating for 2 minutes a day just to build that habit. And then you can expand that. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to automatically just start meditating for 2 hours a day. Like that's just not really that realistic, and just finding ways. So I love that, and I like created a guide on how to, you know, just with tips and you know, how it kind of looks like a worksheet, you know, where you can fill in like your specific goals, and yeah, so I really find that really, really helpful.
Yeah, it really sounds like a charmed life, what you're describing and your whole journey. But, you know, for those of you listening, it required you to surrender and give up and embrace it all, embrace the discomfort and go through it, and accept that things will happen, you know, and challenges will happen. And when in the midst of a challenge, you know, it can be hard to see the light, so to speak, but like you said, everything changes. So just knowing that this too will change, right? With the wheel that comes up and goes down, and nothing is permanent, and everything changes, and you're allowed to change your dreams and your goals, and you're allowed to create new ones. And I think that's where we start. We just start with this allowance and this surrender. And I used to not understand it myself, like being type A, and you know, having certain expectations or environments that I was part of. But just seeing like there's nothing different between you and any other person. So just allowing yourself that idea and that belief that you're allowed to have that dream, you're allowed to go after that dream. That's really, really the first step that needs to happen. And when you have the support of somebody holding tension, making you accountable, that's the whole power of going for a health coach or any other support system of your choosing. Because what I have also realized, like going through different programs after pharmacy school, my certifications, and working with clients myself, like that's the gap, right? That needs to be filled between you just dreaming and like what you described, making it into an actionable achievable step that has time, you know, a time frame on it, that has maybe some money, because money holds tension too. And that really helps people be accountable. And when I used to see like the prices for services, and you know, people would say you're paying for the transformation, not the information, I did not understand what they were talking about. But working with people, I see, and myself, my own progress, you really can educate yourself just through books, right? Like you have done. You didn't absolutely need to go to a health coaching program or a functional medicine university. All these concepts have been around for, since the beginning of time, through ancient civilizations, through, you can get the information. And now with the internet and with so many free resources, it's easier than ever. But why doesn't everybody take action on that information? Because there's a few missing pieces, and that's where that support is really, really paramount. So I'd love to know, what is your specialty now, and how are you supporting people now, Stephanie?
Yeah, so, my mission now is to really, I'm passionate about helping moms like me, especially moms that are working, or even stay-at-home moms, because that's a job in itself. But I really want them to learn how to take care of themselves, because we just have all these responsibilities, and we put our health and ourselves last. We always put our families first, but over time that wears on you, and you start to have symptoms and just these imbalances, and you're not showing up as your best version of yourself. So I really want to help working moms optimize their health to live the best version of themselves, so they can be a better mom, a better partner, a better better in their careers and their jobs or their goals, and they can just achieve whatever it is they want, because they feel that health and that goodness, and they have the energy, and they kind of, it is a transformation, because it really brings them back to like that childlike, where you're like, yes, I can do this, I have the confidence, and make these changes and build on those small changes. And once you start to kind of open the door, just like I found with like my business, once I like kind of just put myself out there and open that first door, like the opportunities, and just, it's like a whole new world that I've been exposed to. So it's the same thing, with making health changes. So I work with clients one-on-one right now. So I do private coaching, and yeah, I'm just really excited about that and what the future holds with my business. I never thought that I would call myself an entrepreneur. That just was not me. Like, I just, like we said, we're type A. I like to have control of everything. And this is kind of like, well, I'm doing this and we'll see what happens. And then we'll just outgrow from there. And so I'm really excited to see, where I grow this business. I love the idea of like retreats, and I love online programs, and all types of different things that I have ideas about. So yeah, so it's just really about the self-care, having self-compassion, not comparing yourself to others. Like you're beginning, you shouldn't compare to other people middle or end. And I did that. I would compare myself a lot, especially when I was looking at people who, when I was trying to, work on my own health. And then, when I was starting the business, I would compare, and I just feel like, well, look how many followers they have, and I'll never get that, and I'll never, but just really, stop comparing. And no one really started out, they weren't born great, and they didn't start out great. They did the work. You just didn't see all the years of work that they've been doing behind the scenes, and just, really helping women go from surviving to feeling like they're thriving in life. And yeah, I think that, just really, I find so much energy just from, I think I had all this, bottled up inside me for so many years, and to be able to get it out there in the world has just been really, really fun and energizing. And, kind of what I learned through my, we're all going to face stress, good stress, bad stress, and getting married, having a family, starting a new job, moving. There's so many life stressors that we just can't avoid. That's just part of life, and that's what's beautiful about it. But having those healthy lifestyle foundations kind of, to go back to in those stressful times will really carry you through it, and you will weather that storm way better than you would have if you didn't. And, a lot of things like positive mindset, like you mentioned, is just really has been helpful as well. So yeah, so throughout my journey of a pharmacist and and personally, I think I see like I had these ups and downs, and I kind of would always just bring myself back, and yeah, here I am.
Yeah, so like we talked about, accepting yourself fully and embracing change is the key to a charmed life. That might be the episode, we'll see. And I can't think of anybody better than you to serve these women that are going to self-actualize. And it's hard to put a price tag on that. It's really invaluable. So if you have just one more minute, can we go into a rapid round question?
Sure.
Okay. So number one is, what is your number one advice for somebody to improve their quality of life right now?
Well, I really love focusing on blood sugar balancing. So I was the kind of person that had to eat every 2 hours, and then I would crave carbs and sugar. I couldn't leave the house without like a handful of snacks in my pocket, and I would get really hangry. And if we had to wait a long time to get a table at a restaurant, I couldn't do it because I had to eat so often. And I realized it was my blood sugar. I wasn't eating the right things. So I would say today you could start by just with breakfast, by going savory, having protein, fat, and fiber, and just not having the sugar, because that really starts you on that roller coaster of the blood sugar ups and downs. And really, you're on an empty stomach and you absorb all that glucose, and there you go, up and down all day long. And then you're going to have those 3 p.m. cravings. You're going to crash. You're going to become more, finding you more reliant on caffeine. And so just being able to fill yourself with healthy whole food nutrients first thing in the morning will fill you up for a good 4 hours, and you'll feel amazing, and your levels will just stay nice and steady all day, and you'll find you'll have less cravings as well.
Such an important topic, and just recognizing also that any carbohydrate breaks down into sugar too. So it's almost the same in my eyes at this point. And it's difficult, right? What we want to bring across here is it's not easy, but it requires change once again. But what are you willing to do for the outcome that you desire? That's the biggest thing. And hopefully that will motivate you to make the change that is necessary. And there's so many ways, there's more than one. This is just one idea, but I think it's so important. So number 2 is, what's your favorite meal to prepare for your family?
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. I think I really have found like I've come a long way since preparing these like food and wine, like foodie meals. Like I love them, and we still try to sometimes, but my meal planning has really changed, and I'm really all about efficiency. And so I think number 1 is always sourcing good ingredients will just make you so much more excited, and your food tastes so much better, and you're more motivated to cook at home than to go eat out, because you're making better meals at home, and and everyone's loving it. So, but I think my favorite, I guess right now I've been getting a whole chicken. I'm lucky I have a friend that lives up the road that raises chickens, so I've been buying chickens from her. But yes, get the best quality chicken slow cooker. And so you can, look up, it's easy to find how to just do a whole chicken slow cooker recipe. You can season it however you want. And if you want to crisp it up at the end, you could put it under the broiler. But now you have enough of your protein for like for a couple of days probably. You know, you could use that leftover chicken for, you know, putting in salads or, you know, putting in your kids' lunch. And it's just a, you know, an easy way. It's really very hands off. And then usually, you know, I kind of always think about the plate as like my protein source, and then like I try to get in as many vegetables as we can. So, you know, I'll figure out like just, you know, something from our CSA. Right now, it's just a lot of salads because we're just still in salad season up here. And, you know, I make my own dressings, and I'll make a, you know, that's something that'll last me at least a good week. And then maybe like, you know, like a brown or wild rice or something like that to go with it. Very simple, but very just easy. And I'll make the rice in my Instant Pot, so that saves me time too.
Well, I love the efficient mom cooking. Very helpful. And lastly, what's something surprising that maybe you haven't mentioned about yourself yet?
I don't know. Maybe I guess that like I don't know if I said this, but I did not grow up in the outdoors world at all. You know, I was a dancer, but that was it. And you know, I really credit my husband to introducing me to hiking and camping and just being out in nature, which is just so healing in itself. But just, and it's fun. I love like not, you know, since we started it when we were dating, and then kind of took a break when we were having kids, and I was very motivated to get back into it. So yeah, I think it's what may surprise people is that I was not like this growing up. Even in, I didn't like to get dirty or anything, and even like high school through college, I was a, you know, and even after college, I was that city girl. And now we have 10 chickens, and yeah, we do all kinds of just outdoor activities all the time with our kids, and you know, camping, still camping in a tent, and loving it. So yeah, so I'm so grateful for that, and that I'm really loved getting to do that, especially sharing that with my kids.
Yeah, well, I love that transformation. And very last question, how can people get in touch with you and learn more and support your work?
Yeah, so I created that free guide for healthy habits without needing willpower, and it's for busy moms. So there's a link to download that. And yeah, my business name is Master Her Health. And so that's my handle on Instagram and Facebook, Master Her Health. And yeah, just find me there. I share a lot of just of those easy hacks, lifestyle, just for moms. You know, cooking. This is what I had for breakfast today. This is what my lunch looks like. I love sharing. I love food. I could talk about food all day long. And also just, you know, mindset and healthy habit ideas, and just, you know, kind of learning about yourself, you know, from a health perspective. So yeah.
All right. Well, I will have all that information in the show notes. And Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Marina. It was my pleasure.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.